It's time for Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt. Todd Marquardt, attorney at law in Texas. If you're a millionaire or a thousandaire, Talk Law Radio is now on the air. Call in with your business law question, your elder law question, veteran aid, Medicaid, build a business to get paid. 210-308-8867. Or ask a question online at marquardtlawfirm.com. That's MARQUARDT lawfirm.com. And now, it's Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt, and we're going to be talking about the law on the radio today. And with me is Steve Warren, President of Financial Planning HQ. He's going to be giving us the financial focus today. He's been a sponsor of Talk Law Radio for several months, and he likes to give us some insight and help us to avoid some mistakes. So, Steve, welcome to the show.
It's great to be here, Todd.
Thanks.
On this cold morning.
Yes, it's cold here in San Antonio. We're live today on January 24th, 2026. And you can call the show if you have a question for Steve at 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867. If you have a question about financial planning, wealth management, how to get started, how to get on track. Steve, I want to start with, what's a big mistake that people should definitely avoid?
A big mistake that your audience should avoid is not having a written plan or a comprehensive written lifetime financial strategy. So a written plan is it's a physical document that a person can actually give to their CPA. They can look at it and they can see, what the strategies are that the client has in order to achieve their goals, the tactics, the objectives, and all of these things are a part of a written plan. So I would convey to your audience, don't make the mistake of not having one. Since our industry is pretty much wealth management, bring me your money, and I'll charge you a percentage of assets under management. There's just very little planning that's done for people. Right.
So if someone goes to a financial advisor and asks, what should I do with this savings? Or what should I do with my 401k after I retire? Or if I leave employment and go somewhere else and I have to do something with that 401k, many times, I think they sell them a product like an annuity or a life insurance policy, or I'm going to invest these assets in a brokerage account for you. When that happens, does that type of an advisor give them a written plan?
No. In almost all cases, there is no written plan. So in the survey that was just completed by Bill Backrack, who's one of our financial planning advisors or coaches of millionaires and multimillionaires, 81% of the people surveyed, out of 500 of them, 81% do not feel that they have an actual written plan that they can go to and they can see it and maybe even give it to their CPA or their other subject matter experts. So it's not very many that actually know that they have one.
When somebody comes to you, do they say, here's my comprehensive written financial plan from my previous advisor?
No, that's part of the documents that are required that we want the potential client to bring in, but nobody's ever brought one. They bring in their other documents, their investment account statements, their tax returns, and so on and so on. But nobody that we have met with has actually brought in a written plan.
And you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah, since the late 80s. Yeah.
You have a lot of work to do, getting people their comprehensive written lifetime financial strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And
so let's break down some of those different words there. You talked about a written plan. What makes it comprehensive?
Yeah, I want to relate that to Your audience will probably remember, I know you're too young for this, but in 1969, Apollo 11 sent Neil Armstrong and sent men to the moon. And there was such a detailed plan for that. It was over 300 pages long. And part of that plan had detailed mission objectives that were actually written. And of course, there was a comprehensive plan. There were strategies that needed to be implemented, and so on. And so I want to relate to that. How important was that? Was it for that mission to have a very detailed plan? And the answer to your question, Todd, is what are the components of a comprehensive written lifetime financial strategy? First of all, there's clear objectives, and those define the client's overarching strategy, the objectives that they have that they want to achieve.
What are some examples of objectives?
An objective would be, I want to purchase a property. Let's say they want to purchase a property in South Carolina on the beach by this date, and it takes a certain amount of money to do that. So that would be a goal or an objective.
Okay.
Sometimes they're not quite that precise. An objective would be to be financially independent when I do stop working.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, which should be an objective for everybody. The other part of the comprehensive written lifetime financial strategy, other than the objectives, it should be comprehensive. So it should cover everything, all of the disciplines, tax, legal, every type of insurance that exists, wealth management, financial planning. There should be strategies illustrated within that plan that show what needs to be done. It's an expansion of the objectives. And in order for the objectives to be achieved, these are the strategies that need to be implemented. To go along with that, there needs to be accountability. So the client has to take action. They have to implement their plan, or it's just a useless document, right? So that's a part of it. The other part is tactics. So just like the Apollo 11 mission, there were tactics, there were actions, so many of them that needed to be done in order to make the mission a success. So tactics are the action plan. And
so in your example, buying a house in South Carolina by a specific date, what are some tactics that would have to be done to achieve that?
Sure. So it might be saving $1,000 a month into an account, depending on how far the objective is, in order to get a certain amount of money for a down payment, and then we're financing the rest, as an example.
Right.
Okay. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah. And so there also has to be a way, very similar to the Apollo 11 mission. I wonder how many course corrections they made, along the way. They did that a couple of times, where they actually had to, adjust where the spacecraft was so that it's going in the right direction. So there has to be a way for, if the client gets off course on meeting one of their objectives or one of their financial goals, there has to be a way to make a course correction. And if one of our clients gets off 1 degree, we make the necessary course correction to get him back on track. And of course, the objective for us is to always be ahead of schedule. I like it when clients are ahead of schedule, maybe 2 years ahead of schedule.
Wow.
In meeting an objective. That makes me feel great when that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the example of buying the house in South Carolina, saving $1,000 a month, what would be an example of a course correction in that scenario?
In that scenario, maybe the side fund that was set up didn't have enough return, and it's running behind on schedule. So an adjustment may have to be made to where they're saving $1,150 a month and maybe not $1,000.
Okay.
Things like that could happen.
Well, we're running out of time. I do want to give you the last minute to ask the audience to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, don't make the mistake of not having a written plan. And I would like to make this offer to your audience. If you would like to schedule a financial roadmap meeting, there's no strings attached, and value will be delivered whether we work together or not. Then give me a call. My name is Steve Warren. and my number is 210-685-2722. That's 210-685-2722. And we'll have you come in. We'll complete your financial roadmap. It takes about an hour to complete. And I would email you a document checklist of what you should bring to the meeting so you have the most terrific experience possible.
Okay, we got to take a break. We'll be right back. Are you confident about your financial future? What if you had a clear financial roadmap and a team holding you accountable to make the best financial decisions no matter what? At Financial Planning HQ, Steve and his sons, Joseph and Jacob, have been helping San Antonio families since 1987 with inspiring, intelligent financial strategies. Whether it's achieving or maintaining financial independence, becoming more tax efficient, or building business wealth, we create a comprehensive, written lifetime financial strategy that's uniquely yours, based entirely on what's important to you. Don't leave your financial future to chance. Call Financial Planning HQ today at 210-685-2722. That's 210-685-2722. And take the first step towards financial clarity. That's Financial Planning HQ, inspiring financial strategies for San Antonio. Remember, 210-685-2722. Hi, I'm attorney Todd Marquardt. If you don't have a will, the state of Texas decides who gets your stuff, and it might not go where you think. I'll help you create a simple, legally sound will that protects your family and your wishes. Call 210-530-4278. That's 210-530-4278. Or visit marquardtlawfirm.com for your free consultation. Do it before you die. Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt here with Steve Warren with Financial Planning HQ. And we're on the radio. We'll be on Facebook Live. We'll be on YouTube. And so, Steve, today, January 24th, 2026, it's predicted to freeze overnight. There's supposed to be some freezing rain. And so I think tomorrow, when everybody's stuck at home, that would be a great time to go to YouTube and watch all of our YouTube videos. You've given several dozen, probably by now, financial focus segments, with Jacob giving some of them and Joseph giving some of them, so they can learn a lot just from watching those videos.
Absolutely, and they're very entertaining as well, I think.
Okay, so last segment I was asking Steve about how to define a comprehensive lifetime financial strategy. And he's mentioned the roadmap before, and we just thought it was a good time to discuss that in more detail as well. You offered to have a meeting with people to go over a roadmap. Tell us what that meeting's like.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, the financial roadmap document is a physical document, and it's 17 by 22 inches, so it's rather large. So that meeting is an experience that I facilitate, and I actually serve as a facilitator and a scribe, if you will. And I ask great questions, and what I want to do is to get the client's vision for how they might operate in the future. And that's what the financial roadmap is all about. It's really the vision, goals that require money and planning to achieve. This is where I'm at currently. In that meeting, which takes about an hour to complete, I don't do a lot of talking, so I ask great questions, and I take notes, and at the conclusion of that meeting, potential clients, even if they don't become clients, they do experience a breakthrough of clarity of some type. because now they have, if it's husband and wife, they have a shared vision for how they might operate moving forward. And part of the vision, I do that individually. So if it's husband and wife, it'll be the husband that'll articulate the things that are important to him and what his vision is. And what's really neat is his spouse gets to listen to the answers. And no advisor has ever asked these questions before.
Right.
And so it's an interesting experience. And then the reverse happens. So the spouse gets to, talk about what things are important to her and what her vision is. That document crystallizes a shared vision.
That's great. I think that not many financial advisors do that. I met with an advisor several years ago with my wife, and his premise was retirement. And so his opening question is, when do you want to retire? And I said, I don't. And my wife looks at me and says, why not? I thought we were going to travel. And I said, I don't want to travel. I want to work. I want to help my clients achieve peace of mind through estate planning and leave a great legacy that people will remember and achieve great things. And the advisor looked at me and said, I don't think we can work together. And I said, I don't think so either. Because his whole premise was that I was going to retire.
Yeah.
And I think I can't think of anything worse than just not having anything to do.
Yeah.
I love my clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, unless you did a lot of volunteer work. And, what if the question might have been, Todd, what's important about money to you? And then you articulate that. Since our role is to help our clients make smart choices about their money,
right?
If we started there and kind of built up and learned about what your vision is, I know you would have articulated what was important to you.
Right.
Right? Your clients are important to you, and building your business, your practice, and helping others with their estate planning. Eventually, you would have probably talked about that, but it would have started, from there.
Right.
And built up from there.
But it's probably not helpful for the financial advisor just to assume they know what somebody's life objectives are.
Absolutely not. I mean, how can you do something like that? Like kind of push off your own, what I feel should be important to you. What we do is to ask you what's important to you, because your vision is going to be unique. Your wife's vision is going to be unique. Everything you mention is going to be as unique as your fingerprints.
Right.
And everybody's different.
I think that's really mind-blowing, probably for all those financial planners out there listening to the show, because they don't do that. They're taught from their upper management, everybody has to retire, and you want them to start putting their retirement with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Or, I want to offer you a financial product like an annuity or insurance or things like that.
Right.
As I mentioned earlier, most of the industry is assets under management and charging a percentage for that. And I'm going to be bold and also say to do as little as possible. I think that's just the mindset. The standards of the industry have nosedived over the past 25 years. A CFP, used to be able to know exactly what a comprehensive written lifetime financial strategy is 25 years ago and what that document looks like and what's in it. It's lesser known now.
Right.
And so the industry has become accustomed to lower standards. And that's why I say do as little as possible. But yet I'm okay because I'm making 1% off whatever you have with me.
Right. So that could be a mistake if you're paying somebody 1% of your portfolio and you don't really know what they're doing. Are they giving you any value for that?
Yeah, and if people knew that in dollars and cents, then they could think to themselves, okay, so I'm paying $28,000 to my advisor in fees. What am I getting for that? What value am I receiving? Is it just wealth management? What about all the rest? What about the legal part of it? What about the tax part of it? What about the goal planning? What about the financial plan? What about all the insurance that exists? Do I have the right type, the right amount of every type of insurance that exists?
Yeah, so if the wealth manager or the money manager is getting their client a 15% return on their investments, but then they're being burned alive in income taxes, that maybe they're not doing as well as they think.
Yeah, because there isn't the coordination with the tax discipline. And something might have been sold towards the end of the year, and now the client has an $80,000 tax bill.
Have you seen that?
Yes.
Well, that would probably scare somebody to death.
Absolutely.
So in the news today, if you're living in Texas, it's going to be quite cold. And so people have been planning. You've probably heard about this in the news or read about it online. A lot of people went to the grocery store and they bought toilet paper and water. Can you relate that to financial planning? I mean, is that a comprehensive plan, having toilet paper and water to survive during this freeze?
No, it seems more siloed actually than a comprehensive plan. So, people, the media just sort of hypes things up a little bit, and people maybe get a little worried about, especially what happened 5 years ago, and people were buying all that toilet paper and stuff.
What they should be buying is maybe a home generator, so that they can have electricity for the refrigerator. Because I remember years ago when that happened, we didn't have power, and so the refrigerator wasn't on. And so we took the milk outside because it was colder outside than it was inside the house.
Yeah.
And so we were able to preserve some things, for longer. But the generator, that's a bigger part of the safety plan than the toilet paper is.
Yeah, I think so, because you're able to continue to heat your home and keep things cold, like you mentioned. You might have beer in the refrigerator and it's getting warm.
Right.
And then, you got to take it outside.
Yeah. So I just wondered if the audience has any comment on preparing for a freeze, whether it's 1 day or 1 week. See, we don't know if the grid is going to be able to heat everybody's homes, and so what's going to happen on Monday and Tuesday. If you have comments or questions for Steve or for me right now, January 24th, 2026, you can call 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867. I also want to talk about the March for Life held in Washington, D.C. yesterday on January 23rd. And today there's a life rally in Austin from, I think, 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 p.m. You can stream that online if you don't want to go to Austin. But what's curious to me is I was trying to find out if Houston had a march or a rally for life, and I couldn't find any news about it. And I was searching X, Twitter, Facebook, I was searching Google, and I didn't find anything. And the show's on in Houston, and so if you're in Houston and you know about a march or a rally that actually occurred already or that is scheduled for the future, please call the show, 210-308-8867. It just surprises me that in a city of 9 million people that nobody's done that yet. In San Antonio, we had one on January 17th. I didn't go, but I was able to read about it in the news. Mm-hmm. And I also want to figure this out, Steve. I've been reading and seeing on the news all of the terrible things that are happening with protesters and riots against ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, and Border Protection. And I'm looking for a story where one of these pro-life people, rammed somebody with their car or whether they were blocking traffic or just some terrible thing, because I haven't seen anything in the news where a pro-life person has done some of the things that the protesters of the immigration enforcement have.
Yeah, I have not seen anything like that either. And
Tell me what you think of... Oh, we have to wrap up. I'm sorry. We'll talk about it more after the break. This is Talk Law Radio. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt here with Steve Warren, President of Financial Planning HQ, and I was talking about the news and the ICE immigration protests, and I was talking about the pro-life rallies and the pro-life marches, and how I haven't seen any arrests being made, or at least replayed in the news. And I'm taking calls and questions at 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867. If you know of some pro-life person that was arrested this month for going to a rally or a protest or doing something crazy or strange or dangerous, call the show at 210-308-8867. I was just about to ask Steve before the break what he thought of the 5-year-old that was arrested. So, Steve, what do you think?
I originally read that story in the media, of course, and the headline was ICE detains a 5-year-old. And so I thought, well, this is not good. I mean, if that's really true or taken away from his parents, then, this is not good. But as I learned a little bit more about the story, I found out that what really happened is that the father was here illegally, and so he was, going to be arrested and probably deported. And so when the father saw ICE was after him, he just fled, and he abandoned the little boy. And so what actually happened was not what was conveyed in the media. ICE did not detain a 5-year-old. The parent left him. And so the only thing that ICE could do was to take care of him and make sure. I mean, you can't just, leave a 5-year-old on his own.
Right.
And they'd have I was talking about a flight plan for Apollo 11. I mean, they have a protocol on how to deal with children. And I believe that they're good to kids. They're compassionate, and they try to help as much as they can.
Right. They didn't handcuff the child.
No, they didn't. But if you listen to some of the politicians, you might have thought that did happen.
Right. And so was the media starting with a false premise there?
Yeah, they always tend to do that. So if you can build a false premise and build a narrative around that, you can really get a lot of people to believe that. If you hear it enough.
Especially when it's repeated by each channel.
Yes, over and over and over again. And eventually you feel that it's the truth. And it all starts with something that is not true.
And so how does your education and logic and learning about what a false premise is, how has that shaped you?
How has it shaped me?
Yeah.
I've always was a fan of Star Trek. I used to like Spock because he was very logical. Mm-hmm. And so he always spoke in terms of logic, right? And so I think the way that it's affected me, if I think back to when I did take logic when I went to college, it was a great course. And just really having trying to find another word other than logical, but to have thought patterns that follow a certain process, if this, then that, is helpful in being a logical, practical individual.
And it helps you think through information that you receive from the media, and you can break things down.
Indeed. And also, Todd, you can be more of an independent thinker and actually ascertain for yourself, based upon the facts surrounding a certain situation, is this really true? Mm-hmm. Rather than to be illogical and your thought patterns are just taking you, to what you believe is just an emotional conveyance, maybe by the media, and you tend to believe something like that.
Yeah, they just take it like they're being spoon-fed.
Yeah.
Well, that's all super interesting to get to know you a little bit better and debunk that myth about the 5-year-old being taken captive by ICE. Since we're in the third segment, it's the sinners and the saints. Okay, so the sinners and the saints, I like to talk about somebody in the news who's allegedly a sinner. And today, it's J.P. Morgan Chase. Trump sued J.P. Morgan Chase and Jamie Dimon, D-I-M-O-N. He's the CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase. And President Trump alleges in a lawsuit that was filed in state court in Florida that Jamie Dimon and J.P. Morgan Chase debanked him after 2021 and caused him damages because he was not able to bank at that bank. And so it got me thinking about other people that may have been debanked. But let's go back to J.P. Morgan. What type of organization, what type of company is that? Have you ever worked with a J.P. Morgan financial planner?
In the past, yeah, we've had clients that have had accounts there. And, we've worked together to accomplish certain things that needed to be accomplished, yes.
Well, I had a client that had big investments. They have some of their own proprietary funds, and those were some high-performing funds. And so she really liked her advisor when I started working with her. And after she passed away, I had to organize her affairs, wrap things up, pay her bills, and distribute whatever was left to the beneficiaries. And what I learned in that experience is that the J.P. Morgan Chase, the investment company, not the bank. See, the whole organization is siloed. And so the bank is separate from the investment company, and even within the investment company, my experience, this is just my opinion, is that each part of the company was siloed. So the investment part of the company did not talk to the estates side of the company. And so you think you're working with one company, but really there's so many different parts of it that don't communicate together that it's hard to work with. Mm-hmm. And another thing is they're not allowed to call you back. So they would say, we need for you to send us this form. Well, I've done that several times already, the same thing over and over again. Why don't you call me and let me know when you receive it? No, we're not allowed to do that, sir. You can call back and ask us if we have it. But, you have to push this number for that department, this number for that department.
Wow.
And so you're on the phone for 10 minutes before you even get to talk to somebody.
That sounds frustrating.
It is. But I'll let you talk about how what you do is a different experience.
Yeah, when you were talking about the company being siloed, that oftentimes happens to clients out there. This is a big mistake as well. If you're working with your subject matter experts, like your CPA and your investment person and your financial planner, your insurance people, all these insurance people that touch your lives, I have found that most people work with these subject matter experts in a silo, so they're not coordinated. And the client is not able to get the highest level of advice because none of these subject matter experts are talking to each other. And I could, in listening to you talk about, this company and how they are siloed, I mean, why wouldn't you communicate just to be more effective with the people that are your clients?
Well, like in my office, we have software that helps us keep track of what we're doing for a client and keep track of their documents and the activity that we're doing and notes and things like that. And if I'm out of the office one day and a client calls in, well, another attorney can see all that same information.
Sure.
And can communicate with the client about what's going on. And so I figured that a big bank, a big investment company would have something similar where, my client has a profile and they can see her investments and they can see the correspondence that has been going back and forth between her attorney and the advisor. But no, none of that. At least it wasn't apparent to me in my experience.
Yeah, so maybe somewhat dysfunctional, right, to say the least?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about being debanked. Of course, you might have heard some time ago President Trump signed an executive order to tell financial institutions to stop restricting law-abiding individuals and businesses' access to financial services on the basis of political or religious beliefs or lawful business activities. And when I was researching this, I learned about another organization that might be able to help out, and it's called the Controller of the Currency Customer Assistance Group. And so you can email them if you think that you've been debanked, and I'll have to tell you about it after the break. We got to take a break. This is Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt. Steve Warren is our guest today. We'll be right back. Are you 100% confident that no matter what happens in the financial markets, economy, or world events, you will achieve your financial goals? If not, we have a process to get your financial house in perfect order and keep it that way forever. Your financial future shouldn't be a guessing game. Planning, advice, organization, and accountability are deliverables you should expect. For over 35 years, Financial Planning HQ has been San Antonio's trusted partner for comprehensive written lifetime financial strategies. Steve and his team, including sons Joseph and Jacob, don't believe in a one-size-fits-all approach. Instead, they create a personalized financial roadmap for you based on what's important to you. As an independent registered investment advisor, they're not tied to any big corporation's products. They work for you, creating inspiring, intelligent financial strategies that put your interests first. Call Financial Planning HQ at 210-685-2722. That's 210-685-2722. Hi, I'm attorney Todd Marquardt. If you don't have a will, the state of Texas decides who gets your stuff, and it might not go where you think. I'll help you create a simple, legally sound will that protects your family and your wishes. Call 210-530-4278. That's 210-530-4278. Or visit marquardtlawfirm.com for your free consultation. Do it before you die. Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. On the radio in San Antonio, Houston, South Texas, surrounding areas, we talk about the law on the radio to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. And one of the blind spots today is being debanked. That's when the bank closes your account for no apparent reason. And if that's happened to you, call the show. We only have a few minutes left. 210-308-8867. 210-308-8867. I was going to tell you before the break who to contact if you've been debanked. And you can go to online helpwithmybank.gov. That's helpwithmybank.gov if you have a complaint about being debanked. I didn't know about this until I heard that President Trump had sued J.P. Morgan Chase and Jamie Dimon for debanking him. So there are resources out there for you. Now, this is the fourth segment, and that's when we talk about legacy.
And now, it's time for the Talk Law Radio Legacy Spotlight. What's your legacy? Sponsored by Marquardt Law Firm.
So this is the legacy segment, Steve, and you know attorneys at Marquardt Law Firm focus on business and estate law, including last wills, living trusts, and tax-protected inheritance plans. It's all about legacy. And today I want to talk about the revocable living trust. Now, you might be wondering, when is this a good solution for somebody? So I have 5 questions. Do you own real estate in more than one state? State law controls what happens with your real estate after you die. And if you have a will, well, then you have to take that will to each state and go through a probate process to transfer title to that real estate. Well, if you have a revocable living trust and you deed those properties to your trust while you're alive, then you don't have to do that. And so most people don't want to go through probate one time, let alone 2 times. So in the first segment, or the second segment, we were talking about a hypothetical wanting to buy a house in South Carolina. Well, if that's your vacation home, well, you don't want to have to go to probate your estate in Texas where your primary residence is, and then again where your vacation residence is. Another one is another question that you can ask yourself to decide if you want to have a living trust is, do you want the inheritance that you leave to your spouse, to your kids, or to your other beneficiaries to be protected from business setbacks, economic downturns, divorce, or frivolous lawsuits? And if the answer is yes, then that's a good strategy to use, to create a testamentary trust for those people so that their inheritance can be protected. And I'll give you an example. Weston Graham and Elizabeth Graham were married and lived here in Texas. And this is a very high-profile case, and so you can fact-check all these things by searching the Internet. And I'm only going to talk about the facts, but there was a divorce filed, and part of the divorce is dividing up the assets. That's the court's job. And what you may not know about Weston Graham, unless you know him or read the news a lot, is that he was one of the co-founders of Rackspace.
Wow.
Which is a successful technology business here in San Antonio. Well, during the divorce, you have to testify, you have to offer up documents to show what your assets are, and you have to prove that it's either community property or separate property. Well, the law presumes that every dollar you earn and everything that you acquire after you get married is going to be community property, 1/2 owned by each spouse. That's the presumption. If you want to rebut that presumption, you have to offer up evidence that says, no, this is my separate property. And so this is what Weston Graham did. He said the money that he used to invest in Rackspace came from a testamentary trust that he inherited. Well, inherited property is separate property.
Yes.
And it was held in a trust, and so you could clearly go back in time and trace where that money came from. And that's what he showed, is that I inherited this money in trust. I used that trust money to invest in Rackspace, and therefore Rackspace is my separate property. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, and we were talking about logic earlier, so that's logical.
Right. Yeah.
Because it was separate property.
Yeah. And so the news was very public about how upset Elizabeth Weston was about that because she felt like she had helped him build that company to be worth billions of dollars. But he said, no, that was my separate property, and so you can't have it. And so that's an example of the power of a testamentary trust. But here's where it gets a little more complicated, is that the words matter in the trust. Mm-hmm. You just can't go to Walmart or go on the internet and pull something off that says testamentary trust, because the laws of all 50 states are a little bit different, and you want to make sure that it has the right words. And so I really dialed in on this case because I want to help my clients achieve the same result. I don't want my daughter's divorcing husband to be able to take the money that I left her away from her.
Sure.
I want to keep it in the family. I'll put that on my financial roadmap. So part of what you have to be careful with is whether or not the testamentary trust gives the beneficiary a present possessory right to the income or the principal. And so that's a fine fact, a fine-tuned part of the trust that you have to make sure is correct in order to be able to protect the child or the beneficiary from their divorcing spouse. And so I've got it all figured out now, and I think that I've already been doing this, but I just am crystal clear now on how he did it. So I might have to see if I can get those documents from his case. That's the other thing about court cases, is that they're public.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah, so if anybody's curious, they can just search the court records for that divorce, and same thing happens in probate, and some fraud comes after that. So there's criminals out there that are searching public records, trying to figure out how they can steal from certain people. And even here in Bexar County, there's a history of fraud after death going after a deceased person's assets. And so it's easy to avoid all that by avoiding the probate court. And you can do that with the revocable living trust, because the trust doesn't have to get filed. It doesn't have to be reviewed or analyzed by the judge. And so after you pass away, everybody can wrap up your affairs at the conference table instead of at the courthouse.
You know, that's an interesting point, that there's actually criminals out there that are looking, to indeed access these public records. And so the living trust is going to keep everything private.
Right. Privacy is important to some people.
Yeah, probably to a lot of folks.
Right. And so I think it also makes things easier for those that survive us, because most people try and avoid the legal system. We're good boys and girls. We don't want to get in trouble with the law, and so we don't want to meet with an attorney. We don't want to see a judge. We don't want to get involved with the police. And so people just, they're kind of scared about that. They want to avoid the legal system at all costs. And that's a good rule of thumb, but it's a little bit too general and too broad, because really, if you want to avoid the hassle and expense of the probate court, you do need to see an attorney.
And you do need to plan.
That's
you need to have an estate plan.
Yeah, I think that's why we get along, because we plan. And somebody was asking me, an accountant was asking me the other day, what's your ideal client? Not what kind of work do you want to do with them, but what's the ideal client personality? And I thought about it for a minute, and I said, I like to work with people who plan. Somebody who knows what they're going to be doing next week, next month, next year, 5 years. The longer they plan, the better. Now, I also do help those who are in crisis because I like to help them get out of their crisis.
Sure.
But ideally, I like to work with somebody who plans. Well, we do have to end the show. I hope that you've learned something about debanking, about having a lifetime comprehensive written financial plan, and about living revocable trusts and inherited trusts. But Steve, I'll give you the last 30 seconds. What else do you want them to remember?
Oh, I would like for people to remember that if they're open to having a financial roadmap completed, that they can do so. And, don't make the big mistake of not having a plan. So just give me a call, Steve Warren, at 210-685-2722. And make it a great day, everybody.
Make it a great day. And if they want to chat about their favorite character on Star Trek, you're probably open to that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of that show. Was a big fan. Still am, if I can catch him.
Well, stay warm, San Antonio, South Texas, and Houston. We have to go. We'll see you next time.